Alright, I want to talk about the springs inside your gearbox and how they go in place. You'll notice that this is kind of cut off from going down really far. So your spring would actually go this way. And the reason for that is if you put it in the wrong way, this way, your spring kind of sits at an angle. That's not so bad sometimes, but depending on how it goes with the tappet plate, it will drag against the gearbox shell. You want it to be straight. As you can see here, this is straight. Because again, there'll be a little indentation sometimes right here. And so with an indentation there, you would want your spring to go this way. Because remember it like this, your indentation is going to be in the middle of the spring. So if the indentation is right here, you're going to want it to go down like this, so the indentation's in the middle. And that would keep the spring straight, as you can see here. If you switch these, sometimes they're not really an issue. However, you can have a little bit of an issue because it grinds within your tappet plate here. Just an example, you can see that that's supposed to be straight in between there. So you could have this hitting in here a little bit. Maybe after some time, clip this spring as an example. I'm not really certain. However, the straight way to go is to look at how the indentation is and put it in correctly. A good way to just remember is that where the spring starts to lift is where you want to put it down. So right here you can see the spring is lifted. This is the side you want to put down. And so same goes with this spring. Now the anti-reversal latch, it really just goes one way, just to show how it goes in. The trigger spring only really goes in one way, and the way it goes, just to be helpful, so here's your trigger. Make sure it's in the hole there, and then as you turn this around, what you can do is lift your safety lever up and then go ahead and slide it in, or you can hold it by the spring like this, put it in here this way, and you can see that the spring is still here. So what I'll do is I'll lift this up. That kind of hurts my hand from time to time, but you can move this and just lift this up and push it into place. As an example, and there you go. It's in place. You could do that if your spring was too tight and your trigger's trying to pop out. You're closing the gearbox shell. The spring here for the cutoff, it latches on and latches in this area here. Well, it doesn't really latch, it just presses against this area. So you have up and down motion. Make sure that it gets underneath here properly in there, and then you have the screw. What other kind of springs do we have? We have this one. The way this one goes in is the more coiled end is the back, unless you've got a regular spring. This is considered almost regular. The only irregular part is right here towards the back. So that would be the back end. The reason is because the more coil side is the stronger side. Also the position of how it goes around the spring guide here is it holds more straight compared to if you have loose coils. So you want to put the coiled in towards the back. I don't know if this has an FPS difference. I would assume it may not be noticeable because once it's compressed, unless there's a lot of irregularity in the back here, then you're going to notice it maybe, but I don't think that you would really notice that. However, this is the correct way to put it in. Also, it may prevent a little bit of the binding. So I think that that's pretty much all the springs here. So if we wanted to count them in the gearbox, we've got one right here, which is the antiversal latch, the AEG spring, the trolley, the tappa plate, and the trigger, and then the cutoff. Well, there is one more spring to talk about, and that is under the selector plate, or under the sector gear, excuse me. It's with the selector plate and the cutoff. There's a spring that goes right here, and you can kind of see that from the other side, make sure it functions. Sometimes the spring comes into, this one is luckily on the outside of the cutoff lever, and it really just goes on the selector plate and on the cutoff lever. And that's all the springs to the version 2 AEG right here. So if you wanted to count them, make sure that they're all there, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just to count them again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, you count your springs before you close the gearbox.